Okay, sorry about the delay. How about now? Let's see if we can get this to stream. How's everybody doing today? I'm just gonna make sure this is actually going, and then we'll jump in. All right, hopefully this is working. There seems to be like a super interesting delay. All right. Mhm. Yep. Okay, great. So we're gonna get started. I'm sorry about the delay. You know, what do? It's the internet. It's modern day technology. It's supposed to work for us, but I swear it's actually working against us sometimes. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Sorry for the startup confusion. Please let me know if there's anything off with the audio or it starts glitching, etc. All right, so coming back into this today, I feel like I had a pretty good start with it. I really want to get some nice lightness into like this shadow area, get some reflected light that's very colorful and like really a clean, light, nice pink color. In terms of like the overall composition and the background, I feel like, I recently made the mistake of taking my greens in too many directions at once on a painting. I'll show you later maybe, but I want to kind of understate these greens a little bit, and I think that there are some places where it's working better than others. I like these kind of blues in here, so I'm going to kind of keep those and remix a little bit. Today, I squeezed out the most beautiful full palette. Behold. It's amazing. All right. I'm very excited about this, but now I have to use all these colors. Woo, scary. All right, so let's start with, and it might be a little bit more micro, moves on this painting today, because it's, like I said, I like the start. It's not that it has like a ton more to go, but we'll see how it goes. Things have a way of like, as you work on things, you create additional problems. And so you end up having to solve more things than you thought you did at the beginning. So we'll see what happens. So right now I'm just kind of sensing out which of the many fine choices of red I want to use for this color. And that's a really nice color, but when I hold that up to the reference, believe it or not, it looks kind of dull. What shall I do? I think I'm going to try this permanent rose. And that, wow. It's a slightly different variation. It's a little bit almost more like neon. It's not as warm. pretty nice. I love to, you know, as we're starting out this little session here, just kind of get these colors moving and like seeing what they might open up to with just a little bit of white. Shockingly, when I hold this up, this feels more right. This is a cadmium. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like that a little bit better. Well, it's time to test this theory. Here we have a little bit of oil. Just put that on the palette. Whoops, too much. That's okay. We don't mind. And I want to oil the surface of the painting just a tiny bit. And if you can hear that scrubbing motion, that is because I am really scrubbing this oil around. That scrubbing sound is from my brush just moving this oil. I want it as thinly applied as possible. So I'm just flicking through the surface. And what this does is it kind of brings back the richness of your colors, particularly the dark colors. Now, it also gives you a little surface in which you can softly kind of feather in some paint. And I don't want to just like use very thick, opaque, heavy paint right off the bat. That won't leave me much room to kind of work into this. I just want to sense out what this would do in terms of creating that nice glow. And I think so far I like it. So I'll go a little bit further with it. It really does need that like warm, kind of richer, like warmer, more fire engine red to make those like purpley cool pink reds appear purpley cool and pink. Like there's just this whole shape in here that is a very, very, very intense color. And it actually just blends into the dark there. So I always say like oil paint is so forgiving and it's so like it is very workable, but this is one where I'm trying to be really careful. There are definitely times when I want like more expressive, you know, brush strokes, and I'll approach the painting in a totally different way. Here I'm really trying to get a little bit of, you know, refined color that I hope will be descriptive, really looking, you know, beautiful. And that the best I could hope for is to kind of make what I'm seeing here in this amazing rose kind of happen in paint, right? Like, anyhow, I'm gonna stop talking for a second. And what I do to kind of see these shapes and not get too caught up is, you know, I've been saying this like all morning to people, is just work around, work slowly, squint. Don't define things too much right away. And I'm trying to pace out the consistency of the paint that I'm working with so that I have a lot of room today to really like finish this up. If I go too heavy with the paint too quickly, you just can't do much. wanted to look at it for a second. I can't tell. But wow, these colors look just so gray and lifeless next to that amazing red that I just brought in. So what are we going to do about that? This is one of those problems that I just presented myself. So yeah, you adjust one color and I just like really upped the intensity of that particular color. And now I have additional things to balance out and to solve for. And that's what I will try to do. I was just thinking I should use this opportunity and this color. I'm going to make a little bit more of it. I want to see if, and remembering that I'm not spending like 18 years on this, I kind of want to finish this in one session. And so when I remind myself of that, I think, okay, let's think a little bit more softly. We're not going to get as specific maybe right now. Let's come back a little bit and try and see where else this color kind of moves throughout this form. I had this like blue underneath and I actually really like that. I think that's a nice little color to show through. It emphasizes this very orangey red. So I do want to be careful to like not destroy everything from previous layers. You don't have to paint over everything. And that's something I really didn't get for a long time. I didn't really understand that layering process, you know, was to leave certain things show through and to kind of build on some things and let others be. All right, let's move a little bit darker, and I want to kind of get into that more cooler, like purpley or plum colored kind of pink that I see on the inside of this form here. Wash my brush quickly, and that's not something I do all the time because I feel like the way that I pick up paint with the brush, it really doesn't need a wash every time, but this is such delicate kind of picky color stuff that I'm going to try to be careful. I make no promises, but we're going to give it a go. See how that one lays down. I think I like that color. I want to see if I can blend into that a little bit. So I just laid down a slightly lighter color in a shape right next to it. And now I'll wipe out the brush. And I'm going to go back and just soften right between those two. So that way you're not like kind of muddying your color and hoping to like just layer one over the other. if you put your color down in these shapes and then sort of blend at the edges between them, that's a nice way to, at least at the beginning, like I said, extend your painting session and kind of leave yourself more room. Here I'm going to try to adjust this shape, but I don't have all that much of an option there, but that looks a little better. And now I need an even deeper dark color that's going to really sink back in here. So let's see what I can do with the Perylene Black and Quinacridone Magenta. Okay. Whoa. That's pretty crazy, in my opinion. Crazy effective. I feel like that's the thing. You really need both the value and the temperature to work for you. And now I'm going right next to that with this like mixture of quinacridone and a little bit, quinacridone magenta and a little bit of that color. Because I think it's very effective. I mean, that looks pretty sunken in right there. Definitely want to balance a little bit of that color elsewhere. Let's see where else it needs to be. Think really carefully here about where we want it. We don't want it everywhere. It's pretty powerful stuff, so use it wisely. Here's a really nice little area that I'm gonna try. Here we go. There's this glow and it's like this bounced light between two petals. I don't have the drawing exact, so this might not totally make sense, but what I'm looking for is more like the gradient that I'm seeing in that area of the reference. Goes from that like fire engine red, that light that's bouncing in there. It's just sort of the way that I think the colors are working to create that sense of form and just build things in this piece. So this is all way too dark. It is just endlessly complicated. And when you start to really feel like, oh my gosh, I'm lost. This is just, you know, everywhere I turn, I can't even find my spot, like where I'm looking at the picture. That's time to take a step back. I'll probably be there in 1 minute, so I'm saying that now. So much of it is finding the shape, right? You have to find where that shape goes. And then you have to see where the edges of that shape are sharp and where they're softer. That's pretty dark. circled back. All right. Couple of things I'd like to do. I'm just lightening that shadow and making it a little bit more of that really warm red. I feel like it really disappears through here. I have it pretty defined. And I still have yet to mix up like the real, you know, pink colors for like in here. So this is all just almost like preliminary, I hope. Let's grab a little bit. See how we're doing with this color. All right, so now I feel like I need to stop for a second, look at it from a few steps back, and also, I'm not gonna look at it for a minute yet, but I'm gonna take a tiny little visual break from it. Don't make eye contact with the painting for a moment. And you might think I'm joking, but I'm actually not joking. You absolutely should look away from your painting every now and again. Even if it's, you know, taking a step back is like the advice that you hear most often, for sure. It's not wrong. Squinting, you also hear that as well. But like literally just looking away from your work for a minute, closing your eyes, looking out the window, kind of like reset for a second. And then I like to kind of walk far back from the painting and take it in and see what we're seeing. Are we losing contrast? Are we losing form for color, etc.? You know, it's in an under construction phase, but hopefully I can get it back. We will see. In any case, during that moment of looking, I also mixed up a color to start really laying on this paint. Oops. And now I need plenty of that color. So let's get more. And as I do this, I'll just ask if anyone has any requests for future pieces. I was sort of entertaining the idea of kind of working on some larger scale pieces, and then I would be working on them like throughout the week, but I would just kind of camera on and, you know, work on them during a live session. And maybe show a progression of how they went during the week. Let me know what you think. All right, I also, you know, as I'm mixing through and I'm looking at my reference, I was making just a little bit of a more yellow color as it goes back in space. This way, it's just a little bit more muted, slightly more yellow. So I used some yellow ochre. I think that is sort of more the color. Let's leave a little mark or two of that. Time to break out a second brush. Yeah, seems about right. Now I'm back to giving this like a little bit more spontaneity. I feel like color-wise, you know, I went pretty far down the resurfacing this whole thing with like a lot of more saturated colors, but now you have to find some of this form again. I'm going to shift into that more kind of purpley color. And this other brush here. I'll kind of work my way back from the other side and see what I can add to this. So I'm trying just to go like kind of next layer of contrast, right? So just a little bit lighter here. My camera drooped a little bit. Let me adjust just a touch. You can see that. Okay. right, so I'm just gonna grab that darker color. Now I'll have 3 brushes going, which is almost unheard of for me. As you know, I like to keep it to the fewest possible brushes. I am not a person who likes to switch around a whole lot. All right, and I'm looking for my oil. There we go. Just a little bit darker at first. Let's see how we can carve this out a little bit. I'm going to drop this side back. I want to indicate just another little petal back here somehow, some way if I can. Just get a little more darkness, kind of going up that way. Just want to build this form up a lot and really look at like what about this flower I want to kind of pull out of this a little bit more. I like this little bend right here. Still can go a bit lighter, so I'll take it. And I have so much wet paint down, so if you're kind of wondering like why all of a sudden this is looking like the brush strokes are kind of taking a little differently, they definitely are. I think when you have a surface that has some paint, you know, you can really do a lot of interesting things, some of them good. All of them interesting. Been working on this rose almost the whole time, and I really need to just pop into the background I'm not totally convinced that I'm going to finish this in the next 15 minutes. Does that come as a surprise? But you know, it's made some moves, it's made some progress. I think one thing I really want to focus on is the light on this petal, just to kind of create a little more continuity with that. Needs it. Wrap that around. Scooping up all that little last bit of paint. Build just like a little dimension. If it's just a tiny bit lighter than where it's going. Let's see, which red do I want? Nocradone red. It's a beautiful red. It is not as warm as your cadmium, but I think it might be a better choice than cadmium for certain things going on here. Let's see. All right, and I'm back into deepening this shadow just a little bit. Now I'm just like very lightly kind of taking the paint that's on the surface and just shifting things around just a little. So I'm just kind of almost brushing with the most light pressure possible. Put a little reflected light into that little area. Should really all be light here. I think we'll go a little darker underneath it to kind of pop that out. Often, you know, if you want something to sort of pop forward or be a little bit more emphasized, and your first thought is to, you know, I got to make that even lighter so that it's seen. Sometimes just going back and working on the dark very near it. Just define that a little bit. Well, like I said, don't get caught up in the center of the flower for like an entire hour. But no, it is coming up on, close to the end. And I feel like there's probably more to do here, but I am getting really caught up and I should probably move on quickly to just blast through a couple of changes that I want to make in the background. So I will momentarily, we're moving on. You guys can all relate, can't you? Mm-hmm. All right, well, we are almost out of time. I'm going to do like a quick little kind of pass over the background. And I wanted to make sure you all knew my favorite new color was Perylene Black. And I'm going to use that for a quick pass over this background. Grab a new brush. First things first. Take a little bit of this lovely color and some Prussian blue together. How exciting. And with just a little bit of Terp, I'm gonna see if there's any glazing or drawing I can do. And sometimes it's just like a matter of like darkening next to a specific edge that and kind of give that impression of like a little more sharpness or detail or something. So I'm just kind of defining a little bit that's already there. Just like bringing it a little bit more into focus and attention. It feels possibly like the most effective thing I've done on it today. Oof. And while I pass by this little neighborhood over here, I realize we've got to soften this. I'm mixing just a really super fast, maybe, brush mixed color. Partially brush mixed. With a little bit of cobalt blue and perylene black. All right. And it's almost, it's like kind of bringing that underpainting color back to the front. Developing that contrast a little bit. And this was why I wanted that background color. I had put on that like really light pink mark earlier, and I just want to kind of smash a little light blue right against that. All right, I'm going to put one more mark, and then I'm going to thank you guys so much for watching me obsess over this rose, and I will likely finish it up and post it on my website as soon as possible. But thank you so much for joining me today, and check back next week. Let me know if you have any requests.